familiar faces, inshallah. With that, no more time for fundraising. We're good, Brother Sharif? Anything else? You guys heard that. Brother Sharif said everybody got to pay $250 to hear Mohammed Zin, inshallah. So with that, we'll actually jump right into halaqah. First, we'll put up the Slido. I need everyone to scan it. Please scan the Slido on the screen so no one disturbs halaqah. And once again, guys, it's the 29th night. Please ask relevant questions to the topic of Prophet Saleh. Once again, ask relevant questions to the topic of Prophet Saleh. Inshallah, our brother Mohammed Zain will be going through those topics, through those questions, inshallah, the ones that are most liked, and any that are extra, inshallah, Sheikh Abdurrahman Badawi will either answer in his last halaqah tomorrow or on the regular halaqah days throughout Ramadan. So if everyone just scanned it, the Slido that is up on the screen, and the code is 1823878. If you can't scan it, if you're at a different angle, 1823878 on Slido.com. Ask your questions and rank it because the Slido won't be up throughout the day. Finally, we are here today with Brother Mohammed Zin. Brother Mohammed Zin is a graduate of Hunter College, a regular at the MAS Youth Center, as well as the Bay Ridge Community Development Center. Today, we are very happy to have him join us. He is renowned for giving halaqas about different topics, and today he's here at MAS Staten Island to continue the series of prophets that we have available with Prophet Saleh. So without further ado, I'd like to pass the mic to Brother Mohammed Zin.
I want to hear this hadith about the Laylatul Qadr having good vibes. That's a very interesting narration. I wonder where you get what madhab you follow. But anyways, don't put that on Badawi. نحمد الله رب العالمين ونصلي ونسلم على خاتم الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا طيبا وعملا متقبلا. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. It's a pleasure to be here. This is definitely the first time that I attend a program like this in this new building. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fill it with barakah and fill it with knowledge and fill it with people who will apply the knowledge. Say Ameen. A reminder to myself first and foremost and to everyone else to renew our intentions, as this is Laylatul Qadr. It might be Laylatul Qadr. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to obtain the pleasure of that Layla so that the rest of the Am is blessed for us. Say Ameen. And the next thing, I want to introduce myself once again. I am an imposter amongst a lineup of people who have true knowledge, true ilm. And once again, I'm just an imposter. Abdullah did not do me justice by introducing me in that manner. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive him and I. Ameen. With that being said, the first thing I wanted to review with you guys is... I'm not sure, did you guys go over the chronological order in which the prophets are revealed, the prophets and the messengers, if they were revealed? No. So who can give us the first prophet off the bat? Adam alayhi salam, and the second one after him? Not Nuh. Idris alayhi salam. Then this is the type of thing maybe to write down just so to keep in mind and to also know the timeline of the prophets, because the timeline is beautiful and it's very interesting and it actually ties into why our world is shaped the way it is today. It's very, very interesting. The next one is Nuh alayhi salam. I'm going to give them to you inshallah. Nuh, and then Hud. One of the earliest prophets is Hud. And who was Hud sent to? Ad. Excellent. Hud was sent to Ad. And then who's the next prophet? Saleh. And who was Saleh sent to? Thamud. So it's very interesting to know that Saleh alayhi salam is actually a descendant of, he's from Thamud, but they are descendants of the people of Ad, who are descendants from the people of who? Nuh alayhi salam. So they're very interconnected. I mean, Nuh alayhi salam, all the people, most of the humanity was wiped out except the believers. So it's a very small amount of people left. And then the next one is Abu al-Anbiya Ibrahim. He's sixth in line. And then Lut alayhi salam, Ismail, Ishaq, Yaqub, Yusuf, Ayyub, Shu'aib, Musa, Harun, Dhul Kifl, Dawood, Sulaiman, Ilyas, Al-Yas'a, Yunus, Zakaria, Yahya, then two more, Isa and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So on this, inshallah, I'll share it with either Brother Ahmed or Brother Abdullah, and they can share it in the chats so that we know the chronological order, because I know the order was all over the place since the start of Ramadan, since the halaqat started, and so it's important for us to know where we are in the course of the history of humanity. Now, the topic today is Prophet Saleh alayhi salam. And Prophet Saleh alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him to, again, which people? Thamud. And Thamud, why did Allah send Saleh alayhi salam to them? Very, very simple answer. No trick questions, I promise. To spread the message. But what were they doing? Why does Allah send prophets? Usually what happens before Allah sends a prophet? Yes, they're misguided. They're worshipping idols. They return to their idolatry and to their hedonism. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent a prophet for them in order to guide them back to the right path, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's path. So Saleh alayhi salam, before he even became a prophet, like all prophets and messengers, Saleh alayhi salam actually was a man of wisdom and a man that all his qawm would come to him for shura, for disputes. They would consistently take his advice on the different issues and the different aspects of their lives. So in the people themselves, amongst the people themselves, all the qawm of Thamud are praising Saleh. They look up to him and they see him as a man who is potentially going to be their leader one day. And because they looked up to him, Saleh alayhi salam, what we know about his story is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that he was of such high status, of such a gracious status. And then one day Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals to him that you are a prophet. And what is the message of all the prophets and the messengers? اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره. Worship Allah as there is no God but Him. And then the shara'i', the legalities and the legislation is different across times and location. So Saleh alayhi salam comes to his people with the exact same message. And his message is actually effective. His message is an effective one of the definitions of the word Nabi is that the Nabi comes to his people and he is not resisted. And Saleh salam was a Nabi. This is one of the definitions, but there are many definitions, but this is one of the scholarly definitions that they come up with. And so he, alayhi salam, he makes very rational arguments. He makes very intelligent arguments with his people. And so the people start to flock to his message. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this in Surah An-Naml. He says, وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَى ثَمُودَ أَخَاهُمْ صَالِحًا أَنْ يَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ فَإِذَا هُمْ فَرِيقَانِ يَخْتَصِمُونَ. And we had certainly sent to Thamud their brother Saleh, saying, worship Allah. And at once they were two parties conflicting. So he split his society in half. Or they split themselves rather. One half obviously followed Saleh alayhi salam and they saw that this message was rational. They saw that this message made sense. They saw that it made sense that there's one God. And the other half, they saw that no, we need to continue in the footsteps of our what? Our forefathers. إِنَّا وَجَدْنَا آبَاءَنَا عَلَى أُمَّةٍ وَإِنَّا عَلَى آثَارِهِمْ مُقْتَدُونَ. We found our forefathers upon a path, upon a tradition, upon a culture, and we want to follow that same path. So when Saleh alayhi salam hears this, he starts to also rationalize with them. And Saleh alayhi salam is him and Hud alayhi salam and Ad and Thamud are mentioned simultaneously over 26 times in the Quran. And so Saleh alayhi salam, he makes the argument. قال يا قومي. In Surah Hud he says, قال يا قومي أرأيتم إن كنت على بينة من ربي وآتاني منه رحمة فمن ينصرني من الله إن عصيته. He said, "O my people, have you considered," after going back and forth with them multiple times, he says, worship Allah. They said, we want to stay on the path of our forefathers. He said, okay, maybe consider coming to this path. Have you considered why Allah, all these creations that Allah gave you? The people of Thamud, of their traits, first of all, they lived in a city called Hijr. A city called Hijr. And this city is northwest of Hijaz. What's Hijaz today, by the way? Saudi Arabia. So Saleh alayhi salam, it's considered in the Arabian Peninsula, and so these people are in that locale, and they are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them plenty of bounty. They had gardens, they had rivers. So obviously, gardens and rivers means they have what? Cultivation. They're able to grow produce. They had a lot of palm trees. And Saleh alayhi salam, he tells them this. قال أتتركون فيما هاهنا آمنين in Surah Al-Shu'ara في جنات وعيون, left in these amongst these paradises and these uyun, this water, this plenty of water, plethora of water that Allah gave you. وزروع ونخل طلعها هضيم, and all of these dates and these palm trees that you eat and that's easy to digest. So you have food that's easy to ingest and digest. You have food that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it plentiful and simple for you. And not only that, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وزروع ونخل وطلعها هضيم وتنحتون من الجبال بيوتا فارهين, and you have the skill and the ability to build. They used to be able to carve into the mountains and build beautiful palaces and homes in the mountain. This is a skill that people in this day and age we still have difficulty with. We're capable of doing it, but not anyone goes to live in the mountain. Only certain regions where people like Dagestan, for example, those guys. That's why Khabib is built the way he is. Those guys are all from the mountain. You see him swimming across against a river current in the cold river. Yeah, all these guys, they take after the mountains. And by the way, the Prophet ﷺ, he says in the hadith that people take after their geography. So people who are in harsh, sandy areas, they're capable of withstanding and withstanding pressure and oppression, transgression for a long amount of time, right? Like the North Africans, for example. The Dagestanis, they're born in the mountains. They're very tough, rough individuals. That's their Moroccans, the same idea. They have mountains there. The people who are in the mountains are different from the people who are from the city. And subhanAllah, people take after their geography. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when Salih alayhi salam, he's making that argument with his people, he's saying Allah gave you the skill to be able to carve these mountains. He gave you the ability, He gave you this plethora of water, of land, and yet you still choose to disbelieve. You still look to turn away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You turn your back on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because they can't rationalize with this, he's so eloquent, and there's no coincidence that his phrasing of how he speaks comes in Surah Al-Shu'ara, the poets. The Surah Al-Shu'ara lists multiple prophets, and it talks about how they spoke to their people. And each prophet is so eloquent in how they speak to his people. And Surah Al-Shu'ara, it concludes with Shu'aib alayhi salam. Shu'aib alayhi salam is known as what? What's his laqab? Does anyone know? No, Shu'aib. He's known as something. Ibrahim alayhi salam was Abu al-Anbiya. Musa alayhi salam was Kalimullah. Ibrahim alayhi salam was Khalilullah. Shu'aib was known as Khatibul Anbiya. Khatibul Anbiya. He was very eloquent. But we're not covering Shu'aib tonight. But again, Surah Al-Shu'ara, when it talks about these prophets, it's because they're very eloquent in their speech, and there's a reason it concludes with Shu'aib, because he was of the top eloquency amongst all the prophets and the messengers. And our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he himself was given jawami' al-kalim. He would not hesitate or stutter in his speech, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So right now you saw me glitch a few moments ago. The Prophet sallam, that would never happen with him. So, and this is a skill. Anyone who knows, who speaks publicly, who gives khutbahs or halaqas or whatnot, knows that it has to happen. You're going to stutter, you're going to pause, something is going to pop in your head. But the Prophet ﷺ, that would never happen to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, back to Salih alayhi salam, he's speaking to his people, and they start to give him the normal accusations that all prophets and messengers get. They start to tell him right away, you are a magician. They waste no time. They say, Salih, you are a magician. You are a man who just follows. You're talking, half the people are following you, half the people are coming to your religion. It's because you are a magician. نَمَا أَنْتَ مِنَ الْمُسَحَّرِينَ. And we are not going to believe with you. They used to go to the believers, they tell him audaciously, you're going to see that Thamud, they are an audacious people. They're very straightforward about their beliefs. They go to Salih alayhi salam, they tell him, you are a magician and we're not going to follow you. And then they go to the people who follow Salih alayhi salam. They tell them, by the way, do you guys believe in the message of Salih? And they tell him, yeah. They tell them, yeah, actually, Salih alayhi salam, he preaches this, and that. I guess they're like, okay, guess what? We're not believing. They're very audacious about their disbelief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're very out about it. And so that audaciousness becomes their downfall. But after they start to see that a lot of people are flocking towards this message of Saleh alayhi salam, and again, it makes sense, it's rational, and I'm spending a long time on this for a reason. This is the theme of all the prophets and the messengers. But we're going to tie it later on, inshallah. But consider it and keep it as a footnote in your head, so when we address it later, it makes sense and it clicks for you instantly. Saleh alayhi salam, they go up to him, they get together, all the leaders, and they say, you know, we need to come up with something for Saleh. We need to address the Saleh situation. We can't just let him preach to the people. What we're going to do is we're going to challenge him. So we accused him of magic. We need the magician to come up with what? Some magic. So they go up to him and they tell him, Saleh, listen, we'll make a deal with you. What we're going to do is we're going to challenge you. We're going to ask you for something. If you give us this ask, then all of us will become Muslim. He says, all of you? There's no dispute, nothing. They said, no, all of us will become Muslim. Not one of us will stay back in our deen. And so he tells them, okay, ask. Saleh alayhi salam, one thing that hurts as you listen to the story is Saleh alayhi salam is so innocent. He's so excited by this challenge that's coming against him. And I'm going to show you how that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala displays this. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks about these people, He says, وَمَكَرُوا مَكْرًا وَمَكَرْنَا مَكْرًا. And they planned a plan and we planned a plan while they perceived not. وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. They gave ludicrous requests to Saleh alayhi salam. He thought they were going to challenge him with questions or a small, simple request about Allah, this deen, this religion. The normal conversations we have. I don't think today we deal with people when we're giving da'wah, they come up to you and they tell you, you know what I want you to do? I want you to split this building in half. I want you to do that. They don't ask you for audacious, unrational requests. But these people are intelligent people. They're skilled builders. They are very strong. They're very powerful people. They tell him, Saleh, what we need you to do. You see that mountain over there, that rock over there? They had a huge rock. They said, we need you to split it in half. Okay, we'll do that. They say, but wait. When it splits in half, we want a she-camel to come out of the rock. Okay, doable. We want the she-camel to be pregnant 10 months. How long is a camel pregnant for? Who here is a camel enthusiast? Oh, I'm going to look like a nerd right now. Okay, so camels are pregnant for 13 to 15 months. I already know way too much about camels by giving this fact. So I'm going to move on very quickly. And we're going to act like that didn't happen. So a she-camel that's pregnant 10 months, meaning it's about to give birth. Okay, we can try, we can put in a request for that. They want, but it's not only that she-camel, it has to be red. If you know, again, the red camels are what? The most prized of the camels. And you see this even in the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. There are many insinuations and there are many times that the red camels do come up in the hadith tradition. And then not only that, we need the camel to be woolly. Has a lot of fur on its skin. I don't know if camels have fur. I don't know what you call it. So they make all these requests, and Saleh alayhi salam realizes what are they trying to do? They're trying to get rid of him. They're trying to make him look silly. So he says, I'm going to make the request with Allah. Perhaps if I make this request, they actually become Muslim. He becomes excited with the challenge, but he sees this challenge is ludicrous. What's going to come out of it? So Saleh alayhi salam, he makes the request and he says, come back on this day and gather everyone. The whole city has to testify to this moment. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-musta'an and He will grant the wish. And so the entire city of Thamud, of Al-Hijr, they gather on that day. And they stand in front of this gigantic rock. And Saleh alayhi salam, everyone is watching. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala splits the mountain out of this mountain. By the way, one of the requests I forgot to mention was that this camel had to be huge, bigger than any animal. A huge camel, red, woolly, pregnant 10 months, and a female comes out of the mountain. Exactly as they requested. And so half the population that was amongst the kuffar, they instantly accepted Saleh alayhi salam. Which shows people sometimes are willing to accept the message, even if in the beginning they're following their leaders, their corrupt leaders, the people who are consistently feeding them propaganda. There's still good, potential good in those individuals. Half of them instantly join Saleh alayhi salam. They believe, they see the miracle, they're like, khalas, that's it. No, there's no way we can dispute this. But the leaders persisted. And the she-camel was there as a reminder for all of them. It used to walk amongst their livestock. It used to live amongst them every day. So Salih alayhi salam, he put conditions for the she-camel. He said that since the camel was given to you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has certain conditions that you cannot break around this she-camel. Number one, you need to allow the she-camel to drink from the well of the city for one day by itself, and then all of you will drink the other day. Fair.
Yeah, there's a car, brothers and sisters, blocking a driveway right next to our center. It's a Toyota RAV4 HVW 3813. Once again, Toyota RAV4 HVW 3813. Jazakumullah khairan. It's a black Toyota RAV4. Thank you.
Bismillah. I forgot where I was. So the she-camel, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed conditions that it has to drink one day, and the other day the people would drink from the well. They would still have the same access. And it is not to be touched or harmed. It's to walk in the land and to be left completely alone. And so for the first few months the people followed. They let the she-camel drink. But as the she-camel was drinking, they would all line up and drink from its milk. They would all benefit from the milk of that camel. And so they got something out of it. All of them, all of their thirst would be quenched from one animal. And wallahi, this is a miracle. And then the next day they would have access to the water. But it was an inconvenience to some of them. It was a reminder when the camel walked around unharmed, it would drink from the well, it would give people milk. It was an inconvenience. Some of them had to change the schedule of their own animals. Their own animals were much smaller and they were intimidated by the color of the she-camel. They were intimidated by the size of the camel. So their animals would the livestock would many a time run away. And it would cause havoc in the city. Imagine you're walking in the street and all of a sudden you see some livestock running in Staten Island, like the turkeys, right? During turkey season. I know from Hassan's story. I don't live in Staten. But imagine that happens almost on a weekly basis. Livestock is running around the city causing havoc because they're afraid of a camel. All the conditions that they had set, all of the conditions that they thought they were being so intelligent with applying, came back to bite them. And wallahi, we can build a bridge and a connection to our reality with this, but inshallah the lessons will be at the end. So some of the leaders sat together and they decided we need to come up with a plan. We need to come up with a way to get rid of this camel. There's no way this camel can stay. Especially now that the camel also had given birth. And that's why it wasn't called a jamal, it was called a naqa, from a nuq. It means that it comes from a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No animal gave birth to it. It had no parents. And guess what? It still gave birth to a child that looked exactly like it. The baby camel would follow its mother all over the land. And it's also large in size, but it's not the same size as its mother. And wherever its mother went, it followed suit and it would drink and it would obviously it would eat from the provisions of the land. So they started to see that, by the way, there's another one now. It's increasing, it's causing havoc in our land. We can't keep this on. It was a consistent reminder to them of their own hedonism, their own kufr. It was a consistent reminder to them of their own loss. They challenged Saleh and they lost. People would see the camel walk in the streets and they would think, and they would come back the next day and they become Muslim with Saleh. Which shows you the message of Islam from Adam alayhi salam's time till now. If left alone, if given true freedom of speech, true freedom of expression, true freedom of religion, if left to thrive in peace, it grows consistently. and it would creep up on any oppressor and transgressor. Islam is consistently the most followed religion in the world. From the beginning of time till now. It's the same aqidah, just different legislation, different shari'ah. If Islam is left alone, it grows. Because this is the fitrah. This is the intuition that Allah gave us, and people want to pervert to that fitrah. They want to go back to it. Sometimes, wallahi, when you see people, we were at a protest with a wall and in front of Barclays Center, we started to pray, and with the way people line up to watch us pray, they're just astounded. Some people are just sitting there. They don't understand the dua. They don't know what's being recited. They don't know anything. They don't know what's going on. But they see these people going up, down, left, and they're just sitting there staring. I just stood there and started watching the people, watching the salah, and I was like, these people are definitely, it's triggering something for them. They're realizing this is what I need to be doing. So their nafs is struggling and telling them, these people have something, there's something, a piece that they have that I did not reach. So we should never, by the way, be afraid to do our salah in public. Although it does cause some alarm for certain people who are not familiar with the deen. But anyways, so Saleh alayhi salam, he set these conditions for them. The leaders are not happy. They sit down. They agree. We need to get rid of this naqa. Who is for it? The Israeliyat, they mention a name of a man by the name of Qudr or Qadir. I forgot the exact name. It's a forgettable name. He's going to do something horrendous. And this man was a young man. And he was the worst amongst his people. In Surah Al-Shams, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes this man. And he says that he's the one who approaches the naqa. But we'll get to that in a second. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes in Surah An-Naml, وَكَانَ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ تِسْعَةُ رَهْطٍ يُفْسِدُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا يُصْلِحُونَ. And there was in the city 9 young men. Raht is young men. But these young men were brazen in their in their disobedience, brazen in the vices and the sins that they engaged in. تسعة رهط يفسدون في الأرض ولا يصلحون. They cause havoc, they cause harm in the land, and they do not do any good. ولا يصلحون. Usually the shabab, we are in our societies, in a proper civilization, a proper society, even in our deen, the shabab are the power. Men and women. Shabab is not just male. Shabab wa banat. But we're going to use shabab as the plural here, so it's all encompassing. The shabab, we are the new blood. We're the fresh blood. We're the ones who bring new ideas. We're the ones who are activated. We're the ones carrying the heavy boxes, lifting, throwing. All of that, in order to have a thriving community, you need the wisdom of the elders, the experience of the elders, and the power of the shabab. That's the only way you can have a well-oiled machine that works together, a community that thrives. If one of them is off, if the elders want to have power, absolute power and say over the masjid, or they have an agenda and the agenda needs to be followed, or something else is going to happen, or they're going to close the shabab section, or whatever the case is, it doesn't work. And if the shabab are raht, يفسدون في الأرض ولا يصلحون, are disobedient, all you need is 9 young men or women to mess it up for everyone. And we're going to see how in a second. So this man, he gathers the other shabab that are with him, and they were known to sit down in a gathering and to drink alcohol and engage in al-muharramat, and they would do everything that's under the sun that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has considered a vice, and they would not care. And so they went to him and they told him, we need you to get rid of this camel. So he gathers these 9 men and they decide, listen, meet me behind this rock. The camel, by the way, would go to remember the mountain that was destroyed. It would go back to that mountain. It would stay there. And for the day that it needs to come to drink, it would come down from the mountain to drink at the well, spend the whole day there, and it's drinking the whole time. It's just drinking from the well. That's how huge it was. And it's feeding its child, and then goes back to the mountain. That's all it did. But that for them caused havoc. That for them was enough that it's an inconvenience that we have to switch the schedule for when our animals feed, and our animals are scared and afraid. So what ends up happening, they decide to hide behind a rock and wait for the camel. And after the men, after they see the camel coming, the leader of them, he tells them, "Yalla, step out, and we're gonna kill it together right now." They all step out to meet the camel, but all of them, 8 of them, are afraid. And he's the only one who's brazen enough. He starts to laugh at them and mock them. "You guys are afraid of this?" And he was drunk. فَتَعَاطَى فَعَقَرَ. فَعَقَرَ, and the description of how he kills the camel is very graphic and is very specific. فَعَقَرَ means that he did not kill the camel outright. Yani it wasn't a merciful slaughter. And forgive me for the graphicness and the goriness, but I have to describe this. And they said, the narrations say that he goes to the camel and breaks all of its joints. He cuts all of its hamstrings, so it's not able to move. And its child would follow it everywhere. So its child is obviously what? In distress, it's screaming. And then finally he kills the camel, and it takes by the way, there's a specific way for a camel to be killed, and the way that, because camel meat is halal, the way that it's killed, everyone, you're supposed to cause an incision in the neck. Again, I know way too much about camels, but anyways, you cause an incision in the neck, and that instantly kills it. The consciousness does not stay for long, and the Prophet ﷺ tells us that this is the most merciful way to slaughter the camel. You go for that windpipe, and it's done. He doesn't do that. He tortures it, and then he kills it in front of its own child. And the child causes a ruckus, the baby camel causes a ruckus, he runs after it, and he kills it, and the screams of the baby are heard in the city. And so all of the people in the city, all the disbelievers that are in the city, they run to the screaming, and he is showing off and boasting in front of them. "Look what I have done. Here you go. I have killed the camel as you've requested." And all of them start to cut the meat of the camel and to eat from it, and they feast and party. Yani beasts, monsters. Genuine, these people are monsters. Again, we said these people, their main character trait is that they are audacious. They're audacious in all their actions. They're brazen about their sins. They don't hesitate. And when they do this, Saleh alayhi salam comes to the scene, and he tells them, فَلَمَّا جَاءَ أَمْرُنَا. Saleh alayhi salam tells them, فَعَقَرُوهَا فَقَالَ تَمَتَّعُوا فِي دَارِكُمْ ثَلَاثَةَ أَيَّامٍ ذَلِكَ وَعْدٌ غَيْرُ مَكْذُوبٍ. Saleh alayhi salam, he comes to the scene, and it's not he gets there and he starts giving a speech. No, they tell him, "Saleh, we killed your camel. Bring on the punishment of Allah. Where is your God? We killed the camel. It was not protected. We were capable of doing it. Where is your God? Bring on your challenge. Bring on your punishment. Here we are." They're celebrating. Humans reach the peak of that pride. You're feeling yourself. You feel like you can kill a certain number of people, 30,000, 40,000, maybe even more, bomb them consistently, and no one will speak up, and the highest court in the world will not stop you, and the media won't call it genocide. And you feel like you're at the peak of your pride, and you're never gonna fall. You're never gonna falter. But trust me, as soon as the zalimeen, don't trust me, trust the system that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in place, the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this universe. Every time the oppressors reach their peak, know that this is the beginning of the fall. Every time the oppressors reach the apex of that pride, know that this is the beginning of the end. And there's a reason you and I are the ones that exist in this moment. There's a reason that you and I, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't create Fatima and Aisha and Mus'ab and Mu'adh and Hassan and put us amongst the people of Thamud or the people of Ad or in the time of the Prophet Muhammad or in the time of Isa. Allah curated you and created you so that you are in this moment, in this time of oppression and transgression, where there are no more prophets, no more messengers. All that is left, the Prophet says in a hadith, that people will come, they will believe in me, and all that's left for them of my teachings are books. What do we get our deen from? All of even our scholars, what are they studying to get their deen? They don't get wahy. Like in the rabbinic tradition, the rabbis, some of them say that they are capable of sometimes getting wahy, revelation. And to this day, some of the rabbis get wahy. I don't know what wahy they're getting. But Allah al-Musta'an. Our even scholars, when they want to go back to opinions or they want to go back to ilm, they'll seek the most knowledgeable and the eldest of the scholars, what do they seek? Books. They don't seek, we seek YouTube videos. We have the luxury of the YouTube videos. The actual real scholars, they have to look into books and mujalladat and volumes of books. That's all that's left for us of our deen. So the Prophet ﷺ, he says that there will be people who come and they believe that's all that's left for us in our deen. And Allah made you for this moment. Allah made you so that you exist at this time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that all of us can withstand the oppression and the transgression and perhaps have a hand in stopping it. So why is it that I feel, wallahi, the Muslims, we today, we're so downtrodden. I know the killing, it's unacceptable. I know we cannot bear. Some of us are losing family members. Some of us from our own community here, I'm sure we lose, subhanAllah, family members. Some of us are afraid for our own families. But Allah made you for this moment. You can't forget that. The moment you and I forget that, we go crazy, we go insane. And I've gone insane so many times. Most of know, I've gone crazy so many times over these last 6 months. I was like, where's the hope? Where is the... You start to question, not question Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but question, when is this going to stop? When is this oppression going to end? But you have to trust. You have to know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put you here and this moment at this time because you are capable of meeting the challenge. Allah didn't put you with the camel or the naqa of Saleh. Allah didn't put you with Ad and Thamud. Allah didn't put you with Nuh alayhi salam and his people, or with Isa and the Romans. He chose you for this moment. And across these last 10 nights, if you're listening to all these stories of the prophets and they're just stories to you, they're myths, then you're not gaining, you're not understanding that the true essence of this battle, the battle of justice and injustice, of right and wrong, has been going on for centuries. Centuries. You and I are just a small spot, a small dot on this timeline of centuries of prophethood. Have you considered why we don't get prophets anymore? Because how many prophets and messengers were sent before us? 136,000. 136,000 stories of a prophet being sent to his people. They fight him back. Allah grants him victory over them. The world resets. Islam spreads. Hedonism rises. Allah sends another prophet. He gives them the message. They resist. He fights back. Allah gives him victory. And the cycle goes on and on and on. Some prophets are killed. Some prophets and messengers are giving, literally in the description in the Quran, they are giving da'wah to their people, and the head of the prophet flies off in front of the people, and the people still continue to carry the message. Until the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After these centuries of this battle of haqq and batil going on, Allah says no more. The end of times are near. The story needs to end somewhere. There needs to be an end chapter. You and I have been in the end game since the Prophet ﷺ passed away. The first of the minor signs, the ulama either say it's the birth of the Prophet ﷺ or the death of the Prophet ﷺ. That's the first minor sign. We've been in the end game for 1,400 years. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of time. So when we hear these stories of these prophets and messengers, it's our stories too. It's haqq and batil as well. It's a back and forth as well. So when we look at Saleh alayhi salam and what the people say to him, just back to the story so we can end off, I'm getting the 5-minute sign. Saleh alayhi salam, he tells his people, you have 3 days. You want the punishment of Allah? 3 days. And Allah commands him to leave the city. On the first day, all of them wake up and their faces are yellow. And the clouds start to gather over their heads. And thunder starts to fill the sky. And they start to realize, I think we kind of messed up, guys. I think Saleh was onto something. The second day they wake up, their faces are all red. And Allah starts to shake the earth under their feet. These people were the most powerful people of their time. No one was as powerful as them. They were warriors. وَتَنْحِتُونَ مِنَ الْجِبَالِ بُيُوتًا فَارِهِينَ. These are men and women who lived in the mountains, who were capable of skillfully building homes inside of mountains. They were powerful, they were strong. And their houses start to collapse on the second day in the earthquake. And finally, Allah doesn't send one adhab for them, like Thamud, or sorry, like Ad. What does Ad get? What does Allah do to Ad? Who can tell us? Just, sorry? A wind, rihan sarsaran, a whistling wind, and all of them disappear. Allah sends a huge wind. You're right, the blast. But these people got 3. Why? Because of their continuous brazen attempts against their prophet, their audaciousness. Allah gives them first the thunderbolts and the clouds and the gathering of the skies. And then the second one is the earthquakes. And Friday we had a little shake. Imagine that shake consistent and strong to the degree that mountains are collapsing. And the third one for me, I think, wallahi, this is the most scariest adhab that's described in the Quran. As-sayha, the scream. An angel that comes down and screams. And so these people, it's not just a scream in which they cover their ears and like, oh my God, this is so bad. A scream, the power of sound that destroys and wipes away everything. Everything. Nothing is left. The people are not left. Their homes are not left. There's almost no sign of life left. And that's exactly what happened to the people of Saleh, the people of Thamud. That was their end because of their audaciousness. Saleh alayhi salam, after he had left the city, he comes back and he sees the ruins of his homes. And he says, "O my people, I told you, I advised you to worship Allah." Imagine the survivor's guilt. Imagine the personal relationships that he formed. The friends that he had before the prophethood that he probably lost after he became a prophet. And then finally, he lost them forever. In this dunya and the next. Imagine the heartbreak that the prophets have to go through. That fear of even losing their people to this retribution. Wallahi, nothing like it. We don't sit down and consider this. We only see the adhab and that's the end. But when we hear these verses in the Quran, you have to put yourself in the city, put yourself in Saleh alayhi salam's shoes. How would I think? I would be very upset to survive my entire people being wiped out. I would be very afraid of, I would wonder, did I succeed? Did I fail? I would have a lot of self-doubt. But he was successful in delivering the message. He delivered the message to his people. But the people themselves, they were the ones who didn't listen. They were the ones who continued to fight back against their own prophet. And to this day, the people, these cities are there. The city of Saleh al-Hijr is there. It's called Mudun Saleh or Madain Saleh. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and inshallah we end with this narration, on the battle of Tabuk, he is traveling to with his army, and they see the remnants of a city that is collapsed. And there's jars left, there's water, obviously there's a well. And so the companions, they run to take from the waters of this land. They run to take from the jars of this land the items that were left behind. And so the Prophet ﷺ, when he noticed that they were taking from it, he said any food that was cooked from the water is to be thrown out, and any jars that were taken are to be broken. This is the land of who? The land of the people of Saleh. And we're not going to take any of their stuff. And the Prophet ﷺ, he finally says, whenever you enter the city, you must enter it weeping. Do not enter the city as a visitor, for tourism. You go take a selfie, #destruction. I don't know what people would do. People, listen, have no shame online. I don't know what people would post. It's the simple truth. You got to take it. But people would, subhanAllah, if you do not enter the city, thinking of what happened, thinking of all the destruction that occurred, if you do not enter weeping, Prophet ﷺ, do not enter it. Do not enter it. Only enter it weeping. If you're going to visit it to reflect on what happened to these people. Visit it to reflect and see what happened. It's not a tourist site. It's not a tourist site. And so that's the narration that we end with. And this is the story of the Saleh alayhi salam. I just one last point I want to make. The story of Saleh alayhi salam, if I were to summarize it in one story, it's a story of a man who came to deliver a message to his people. They ask him for a she camel. He gives them a she camel. They kill the camel, and Allah destroys them. At its core, that's the story. Now one might wonder, Allah destroyed a people just because they killed a camel? Allah destroyed an entire civilization because they killed a camel? Is that really that's what happens to people who disobey Allah? And to that, I just wanted to draw a parallel. I really like taking these stories and drawing a parallel just to again give a clue about how we have to think about them. The person who thinks so simplistically, oh, Allah, they killed the camel so Allah destroyed them, is the exact same person who looks at October 7th and says, I can't believe the Hamas attacks October 7th. So horrible. I can't believe they happened, man. The 75 years of oppression beforehand, all the resistance that happened beforehand, all the oppression that happened before, all the tanturas that happened beforehand, the Gaza incidents that happened beforehand that we probably don't know about. All the massacres that happened between 48 and the 60s and the 70s that we probably never heard of. What about those? What about those? You're not going to consider that? So these people, subhanAllah, humans, their tab', Allah created us all from Adam, and Adam is from Turab. We have the same genes. Our gene population is 99. If you do a gene analysis of humans, it's 99.999 to the 10th digit. Our genes are similar. And then they start to become dissimilar after the 10th decimal place. So all of this is to show that people don't change their patterns. And Allah, the reason we have a Quran that Allah reveals exactly 6,000 something verses in, is to give you the exact, He tells you this Quran, this is all you need till the end of time. This Quran is all you need. All the stories and all the people you're going to meet and all the oppressors and the transgressors and the people who will come with the oppression and the type of oppression, it's all in the Quran. You just have to open up your heart to it. You have to open up the book itself, and the book will unlock its secrets to you. إِنَّهُ لَكِتَابٌ عَزِيزٌ. This is a glorious book. The Quran is if the Quran is a Aziz book, when someone who is Aziz and you approach them and you don't give them the izzah and the respect that they deserve, what are they going to do to you? They're going to turn their back on you. So the moment you turn your back on the Quran, know that the Quran has already turned its back on you. It does not need you. It's already a book that is Aziz. So we need to sit down with the Quran more. The stories of the prophets, and look into just the stories of the prophets, we need to look into them. Why did Allah do this to these people? We need to inquire. Why would Allah do this to these people? We need to draw parallels. These people killed a camel, so Allah destroyed them. Like, how can I draw a parallel to today? Oh, just like the Zios, they make the same argument. You can fight back against, just like the Qawm of Saleh, exactly like Thamud. The Quran is there to draw parallels. The Quran, the verses of the Quran, and I said this, and I'm going to reuse it shamelessly. The Quran's verses are like the stars in the sky. All you need to look up, make links, and you're going to see the constellations. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who hear advice and heed it, say Ameen. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who consistently stand up against oppression and injustice. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for our brothers and sisters in Gaza, in Sudan, in Yemen, and all across the world. Jazakumullah khair. Subhanakallahum bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. I don't deserve questions, but sure. Is it true that Prophet Saleh ﷺ was physically much smaller than his people? His people were giants, and was he like us? I don't know. Aside from the oneness of Allah, what are the universal rulings that every prophet related to their people at the time? Worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, believing in the prophet of the time, staying away from vices, the ahkam surrounding zina and all that stuff. It's all been the same, and I don't know, I can't speak, subhanAllah. The ahkam surrounding zina and marriage. No, actually marriage, it changes across time. Leaving alcohol, things like that. Different shara'a have different methodologies. The main one, and the one that you need to focus on, is the fact that it's only Allah and believing in the Prophet of the time. Two more, okay. Please answer. You said the prophets were sent down to guide those who were misguided. What about this generation with the misguided people? This generation with the misguided people, you don't need prophets. You have the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we already mentioned this, but we'll mention it once again. Even if the people were to be granted a prophet, not the entirety of the world would follow. Not the entirety of the world would follow. It would be exactly like it is now. Certain people are following the Quran and the Sunnah. Certain people are following the truth, are attempting to find the truth. By the way, anyone who actually diligently looks for the truth, Allah will aid him to it or her to it. Malcolm X's story, and I recommend you go look at Malcolm X's story, is someone who is consistently seeking the truth. Even to the degree that when he finds an off-brand of Islam in Elijah Muhammad and the nation of Islam, Allah guides him to the true Sunni Islam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you are actually seeking the truth sincerely, Allah will give it to you. So the misguided people, you said two more, right? That's it? Okay, thank you. So the misguided people, even if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was to send 2 prophets, 3 prophets, there are stories that the 3 prophets are sent at a time to a specific people. And the people still disbelieve and they end up getting destroyed. So don't think in that manner. Don't think that we need prophets in order to be guided. No, we already have the teachings that are necessary in order for people to be guided. Anyone who doesn't believe or believes, it's exactly as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills in this dunya right now. If the people who believe, they would have followed a prophet if a prophet was still being sent. And the people who are disbelieving, they would not have followed, inshallah, 3, 4, 5, 6 prophets at a time, no matter how many Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had sent their way. And you have to have that belief and have that iman. Jazakumullah khair.
Jazakumullah khairan, Brother Mohammed Zin, once again for that beautiful reminder around Prophet Saleh's story. Brothers and sisters, I need you guys for 20 seconds. Sisters, this happens every day. 20 seconds, inshallah. We have an updated leaderboard. So, that updated leaderboard is, at first place is Brother Abdurrahman Lamada at 17,480. Number 2 is Brother Mu'adh at 1750, Sister Mawadda at 6412, and many others. Before anyone moves, okay, I'm getting a lot of heat from many others. Brother Adam, and then Sister Maya, Sister Sandra, Sister Felicia, and then Brother Rustam. Really quickly, brothers and sisters, this fundraiser ends tomorrow at 11:59. Once again, this fundraiser ends tomorrow at 11:59. Whoever you want to win, you gotta donate.